The final countdown. Sorry, I just had to get that out of my system.
Hold him up.
Cheers. I'm an anti-wave guy. Maybe I hate fun. I don't know. I don't think so usually.
Oh my God. If he's going to have a loud month, and that month is September,
Have a month, Tyrone. Have a month.
we going to notice you.
Our Lord and Savior. Our second coming of Jesus. LuisAngel. Acuna. Everybody hits. Everybody eats.
Everybody eats today. Everybody hits. Benaya's getting paid.
I would die for that man. If the Mets don't re-sign Sean Benaia, I will be inconsolable. Gary, Keith, and Ron are my three best friends.
Okay.
Thanks.
You need to get more friends.
I just know that Keith Hernandez was a good time back in his day.
It has been well documented that Keith Hernandez was a good time.
This is Why Am I a Mets Fan? A podcast hosted by Samantha Croston and Ashley Wenskoski.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. Man, oh man, are things heating up now. That's Ashley Wenskoski. I'm Samantha Croston. Thanks so much for joining us. You can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to us. You can watch us on YouTube or follow us on social media at WhyMetsPod. But the bottom line is that we are heading into crunch time. Ashley, how we feeling?
It's the final countdown. Sorry, I just had to get that out of my system.
It's okay. I was there to back you up.
Yeah, it's the last week of the regular season. We made it. Mets currently, disclaimer, we are recording this as usual. We are really sorry. As the Mets are about to take on the Phillies on Sunday Night Baseball, it's 7:06. It starts at 7:15. This episode will not include the results of that game, so please bear with us there.
And let's just say it once just to say it. Like, we really are sorry that happens, but just please know that it's because we have another job. Our job is as broadcasters, so there are just certain weeks where we have to do what works best based on our schedule. So thanks for sticking with us.
And that's it, and that's showbiz.
That's showbiz.
Anyways, right now, the Mets are, the Braves won today, so the Mets are a game and a half, I should say, ahead of the Braves for the third NL wildcard spot. They're a game behind Arizona. And look, Phillies versus Mets, Saturday Night Baseball, all the juice, Zach Wheeler, Tyler McGill. We'll see how it goes tonight. Tyler McGill pitching in the most important Mets game of the season so far. He's been good lately, and I know that, so don't come at me. It's just a little funny.
We understand. We understand. Zach Wheeler, a former Met. It has all the makings to be a classic. And I feel like you'll probably say this every game, or at least a lot of the games leading up to this week, but it feels like, again, it's one of the most important games of the season. They have to do everything that they can, but they are in a good spot. And I think even if they, not to jinx anything, but honestly, even if they lost tonight, like my dad and I would discuss this, and he always said that he felt pretty confident as long as they could go into Atlanta one game ahead. I think I agree with that. Nothing would make me feel not a little sick. But I'm going to feel a little sick. But a game ahead actually makes me feel okay. I'm okay.
But how good would you feel with 2 games?
Better.
I mean, 2 games would be just so lovely.
It would be better. It would be the best. Okay, so we're going to, run through some of the tweets of the week. But I think we'll kind of do some of them as we go throughout the episode. One that I did want to bring up, because we're going to get into all the players who we, of course, love and who have been doing great. But this is just a banger by Diana. She said, picture this. And I don't even know if you know this is how the tweet started when I sent it to you, but it started like this. Picture this. Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, JD Martinez, and Adam Ottavino walk hand in hand into the sunset. In parentheses, they retire. Max, and then she follows that up by saying Max got scratched from his start today. JV is throwing batting practice every 5 days. JD hasn't gotten a hit since the Thomas Jefferson administration, and Adam Ottavino should have stayed as an SNY commentator.
He should have.
Listen, is she wrong? No. And out of all those, I have to say the JD Martinez thing, I was thinking in my head, like, this dude, and he's been great all season.
Yeah.
But this last part, woof. And you know what? Credit to Mendoza, because I will say, I went to the game on Saturday. His ass was out of the lineup.
Yeah, tell us about your game experience for a moment.
Oh, my God. Well, first of all, hold him up.
Cheers.
Can you see him? Can you feel the... Totally. I don't know if many of you, I'm sure, know this, but you can get these cups if you purchase a drink and you go to the Mets game.
They're so heavily overpriced, but they are worth it.
But and you get the cup with it,
right.
So that matters to me.
I drink out of this in my house now. You know, it's like a little Mets
yes, very important. I did go to the game on Saturday. This game was awesome. I remember that before the game, DeComo said that they were inching towards it being their 4th sellout of the season. I want to say it was a sellout. And man, did it feel like it. I mean, if you were watching on SNY, you saw that they had the drone shots going on. I mean, it really was rocking in there. It
Did you
felt
just
like
say SNY?
Yeah, you never heard that?
No.
I
had to think about for so long what you just said. I was like, SNY,
some people who run in my circle who watch SNY say SNY.
All right, maybe it's a Long Island thing.
Let me know. Honestly, now I'm curious if anyone else has ever heard that.
Anyway.
Or if everybody else was kind of like question mark. My mom said it the other day like it was a thing.
All right, maybe it is. I don't know.
Or maybe it's only Alyssa saying it. Anyway, no, it was awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Like it really felt like a playoff environment. I even saw Steve Gelb saying he felt like it was rocking, kind of like a 2015 feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the best part of the experience was, to no one's surprise, Edwin Diaz coming out. I mean, when it is rocking, she's in a song mood today, so we're just gonna rock with that.
It's
no, it's
probably
totally
really
fine.
annoying if this
It's
is
totally
in
fine.
your AirPods. I apologize.
If it's in your AirPods, you're like turning it down. I try to get the wave going in my section.
I'm a big anti-wave guy.
And wait, for the record, you and this one dude who was in the section that was to the right of me were on the same page. There was some dude at me like, watch the game. I was like, you aren't fun. Anyway, I couldn't get it to work. Why are you anti-wave?
I just think it's distracting. It's like we're focusing on, I don't know, I don't like it. I think the player, I'm an anti-wave guy. Maybe I hate fun. I don't know. I don't think so usually, but.
No, she's not an anti-fun guy. The thing is though, the wave, I guess this is how I feel about it. Question of the week, do you like the wave or not? The wave to me has to be perfectly timed. And in retrospect, looking back, that was my mistake. Like, I thought of this idea, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be great, and people in my section are trying to make it happen. But it's like the 8th inning. That's not an appropriate time for the wave.
Right.
The wave is a 4th inning success and an 8th inning failure. And I found that out the hard way.
Picturing you with a couple beverages trying to start the wave in the 8th inning
That's what it was,
really
though.
a sight.
But that's what it was. And I was exactly in front of the section, and my whole section was doing it. The whole section to the right of me was doing it.
Oh, man.
But you need like 4 or 5 sections to get it going, and I couldn't get it going.
Anyways, it was a great time.
It was a great time.
Happy to hear it.
Here's another stat for you, speaking of the home games. The Mets have won 11 of their last 12 games at Citi Field, outscoring opponents 72-27.
72-27.
Woo!
I mean, come on.
That's an atmosphere.
Yeah, that's an atmosphere. And the Mets have the best record in baseball since May 30th. We've been saying that for weeks. They're 64-36. They have been the best team in baseball throughout the summer, and they showcased that again this week, right? Sweep the Nationals. They have taken, as of this recording, the first 2 of 3 from Philly.
And they are not done yet. I will say there has been many, many reasons why this team has been doing great. I think you could just start with the fact that everybody and everybody's bats are really hot.
Everybody hits. Everybody eats.
Everybody eats today. Everybody hits.
Sorry, we're in a real mood. It seems like, and you know, this is funny because I feel as though we sat at this exact table last week, or I know 2 weeks ago, and said that the problem was the bats. And
I mean,
the
we did
lineup
say
was
that.
Cold, and I think it was last week. This week, everybody decided we gonna hit without Lindor. Jose Iglesias, most notably, he's batting .414 over his last 15 games. That's the highest batting average in Major League Baseball over that span. He has a hitting streak of 15 games, and since being called up from AAA Syracuse in late May, he not only leads the team in batting average, he has the highest win probability added other than Francisco Lindor and Brandon Nimmo.
Oh my God.
Love that guy.
That is actually insane. And it's not just him. You have Nimmo, who sort of awoke from a little slumber that he was in. He had 2 home runs, 8 RBIs this week. Pete Alonso has been doing a nice job. And Tyrone Taylor, who's Ashley's unsung hero.
We have to talk about Tyrone Taylor because
it's high time.
I need to issue an apology to my good friend Tyrone. This podcast has ignored Tyrone Taylor a little bit down the stretch, and I apologize because while throughout the season I had some doubts about Tyrone Taylor's abilities, in September, Tyrone Taylor decided that we were making a playoff push. He is hitting .400 in the last 7 games. I feel like every time I'm watching a game, Tyrone Taylor is coming through with a timely situational hit in a clutch moment, and he's hitting .323 with a .980 OPS in September. I mean, that is absurd.
In September, that's the thing. Like you mentioned, like we didn't always know and didn't always see, but if he's gonna have a loud month, and that month is September.
Have a month, Tyrone. Have a month.
We're going to notice you. Not to mention Francisco Alvarez, who also has a 4-game hitting streak. He has certainly found his power, has been bombing the ball, 3 home runs, 7 RBIs in the last 4 games. And I've been seeing some of these memes floating around, but to know that him and Vientos and Acuna are the boys who you're going to be seeing here for a long. I mean, it's a good thought to think that those are the guys who you're going to be seeing in the lineup.
Yeah, Vientos still fast asleep. Mark, if you'd like to wake up, now would be a good time. He not only had a golden sombrero the other day, he had a platinum 5 strikeouts in a game. That's hard to do.
Platinum.
But yes, I think it's great for Mets fans to know that those 3 are so young, will be here for so long. Francisco Alvarez is 22 years old still. I saw that today, and I had to do a few looks at that. I was like, that is crazy.
He is like 22 going on 32. That's insane.
He's 22. Like,
the facial
hair? I know. It's crazy. And of course, this brings us to our Lord and Savior, our second coming of Jesus, LuisAngel Acuna.
Woo!
Sorry, I'm so annoying.
Yeah, Mets got their own Acuna, who's going to help them win against the Braves. And this was one of our bonus tweets of the week, actually, from @JFern26. He said, using our own Acuna to get rid of the Braves is going to feed families. And he's not wrong.
Feed families. I mean, what a story it is that the Mets, they've been chasing the Braves for, years at this point. They can't ever knock down the Braves. Ronald Acuna's hurt, and his little brother, LuisAngel, is now single-handedly trying to will the Mets past the Braves.
And the fact that, I'm just saying, before we even get into the numbers, to be called up at that time in September to be replacing the Mets star, that's a big spot to be in.
Huge shoes to fill. Gigantic. You're replacing an MVP candidate.
And he has lived up to the pressure. I feel like Gary Cohen said it best. At one point during, all this flair that we've been seeing in one of the games, he says something like, since this kid has been up here, he hasn't made a single mistake.
No.
I mean, yes, he's hitting well. He's also a great fielder.
Fantastic defensively.
It brings up questions, quite honestly, about where there is going to be room for some of these other fellas, and honestly, where there's going to be room for him.
Yeah.
Like, it's tough when you think about Iglesias, you think about Lindor.
McNeil coming back.
Where is Acuna going to go?
Where's Beatty?
My God, he has a place. And by the way, we'll do an episode about that later on, about where we think everybody's going to end up.
Yeah. Diana had another really funny, she's just so funny. She said LuisAngel just hated upstate New York. I feel him, very relevant to this podcast, which is based in upstate New York. I don't hate upstate New York, by the way, but disclaimer. Anyways, yeah, he's just raking. I think the connection between, it's fun, right? Ronald said he's going to be in Atlanta this week. The two are going to see each other. They're going to exchange jerseys. LuisAngel said after yesterday's game that every single time I do something, he always reaches out to me. The days that I don't do something, he says, don't worry, tomorrow you'll hit 3. It's just the cutest story. It's the cutest brother's story. But yeah, the kid's been incredible. He's handled the bright lights of New York without missing a beat, and he's up there. He's been up for 8 games, and it's literally the down-the-stretch playoff run. Citi Field is sold out. He's one of those characters that seems to not only be able to handle the pressure and the bright lights of New York, but actually thrive off of it. And those are the guys that could have a long-lasting career in New York.
You're so right. It's not just that he's handling it. He loves it.
It pushes him. He does better. Alvarez, too.
Point proven on Saturday.
Yeah.
Seeing the blast that they both had. So yeah, Acuna at this point, he had 2 doubles. He had a triple. He had 3 home runs. We didn't mention this yet. Think it's important. He is wicked fast.
Oh, so fast.
Bro can run.
Yeah, I think he had 40 steals in AAA. I don't think he's stolen a base yet up in the majors, but certainly if he gets a full season with the Mets next year or wherever that may come, expect him to be a threat on the base paths.
Really, really fun to watch. So that's the bats. You also have this rotation magic. What else is there to call it?
Little magic dust, how the Mets went from 1 month ago, maybe 2 months ago. You couldn't trust any of them. Any time out, you didn't expect a starter to go past the 5th inning. If a starter completed the 5th inning, you thought that was a good day. Now these guys are going into the 7th, 8th. They're giving depth. I don't know what Jeremy Hefner did up there, pitching coach for the Mets, in the last month or 2, but he certainly did something because he even turned around Tyler McGill. And listen, that is something I'm not trying to jinx us for tonight. So that wasn't a jinx. But McGill has a 1.69 ERA in his last 4 starts. He's really started to increase the use of his slider against right-handed hitters, which I think has made a difference. And he just is pitching with more confidence. We saw the SNY graphic earlier this week inside the rotation. Obviously, some of that stuff has been a little bit changed. Peterson didn't fare so well against the Phillies on Friday, but we all have our moments. They're not gonna be perfect every single time. And yeah, I would die for Sean Manaea. That's my takeaway.
Manaea's getting paid.
I would die for that man. If the Mets don't re-sign Sean Manaea, I will be inconsolable.
No, that is That is a requirement. That's
Yeah.
not even a point of discussion. That's not a topic. There's no room for arguing.
No room.
Come on, man. Like,
Yep.
that's a dude who you need to sign, and
Yep.
you need to sign immediately.
Yeah.
Let's get it going.
The big three have been fantastic, and Quintana and McGill have somehow turned it around too. I mean, it's seriously 1 through 5.
And for the record, I'm not the kind of person, like, I understand that there are going to be some pieces that need to go.
Yeah.
But you need to, and even, I'll be honest, I still don't know how you're feeling about this. I just am curious because I want to check in. Even still, with everything that's going on, I'm still going to sit here and say I'm not going to offer Alonso huge money at the end of the year. I'm really not.
No, I'm not.
But Manaea, we got a hook, line, and sinker that.
Hook, line, and sinker.
Come
We've
on.
seen that the lineup can do this. I don't want to say without Alonso. We can get into that topic at a different time.
Sure.
But yeah, Alonso's not the top of my list right now. Anyways, for the rotation stuff, I mean, it truly is just crazy. Another note on that is that the Mets just announced prior to tonight's game that Luis Severino, they are bumping him up in the rotation so that he will pitch on Tuesday in Atlanta, and that's a smart thing to do because if game 162 against the Brewers next Sunday is a factor, Luis Severino will be starting that game.
Love to see that. We do have one bullet here that says the final home game at Citi Field, which I know we already discussed, but a little bit more on some SMY greatness as well. Let's just take a beat and just talk about it because I think our viewers and commenters will have something to say. Ashley and I, not huge fans of the national broadcast. Not huge fans at all.
No. Yeah, the Mets, I mean, these 4 games against the Phillies, SNY had one of them. I love seeing the Mets get national attention as much as the next guy. I love promoting the team and the brand like that. But it's tough when you don't get Gary, Keith, and Ron for the games that you want them for. I mean, the Mets, they've just been outrageous. You touched on it, the drone usage. I mean, that looks like a national caliber broadcast. Edwin Diaz coming in with the bullpen and the trumpets and the shots. It just is incredible. Obviously, we work in journalism. We work in broadcasting. It is incredible stuff what they pump out. Gary, Keith, and Ron aside.
Well, that's what I was gonna say the same thing you just did. It's not just the broadcasters, and I hope that everybody, and I think everybody does understand that. It is the entire production team.
It's the whole thing, top to bottom.
It's a movie.
It's a movie.
It's a show. I mean,
so
it
good.
is beautiful. But yes, so again, one other thing that had been brought up was the fact that that Carlos Mendoza has been adamant that this will not be the Mets' final home games this year at Citi Field. He said, we're not ready to call it. I'm telling you. He mentioned that in multiple press conferences this week. Whether or not that's the case, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, it could be Pete's final home game at Citi Field. He tried to kind of brush that off earlier today, and, you know, they're trying to get there in the NLDS, get past the wild card series. We'll get into it. They will not play at home in the wild series. There's pretty much no path to that right now. But yeah, to wrap up the SNY thing, we got one more
God,
week.
I forgot.
It's so sad to think that the Mets are hopefully, these are my fingers that are crossed, going to go to the playoffs and we get no Gary, Keith, and Ron for them. I know this is not news, but my opinion, and you can tell me what you think in the comments, is that there is no need for every single MLB playoff baseball game, now that there are so many, right, with these wild card series, to be on a national network. Give the local broadcasters at least the wild card series. I mean, I would also argue the NLDS, but at least the wild card series. These are the people, we are so spoiled with Gary, Keith, and Ron, and that's one thing, but any franchise in baseball. You listen to these guys all summer, you feel like you have a connection to them, they have a connection to the team, they know more on the inside. It's just ridiculous to me that is how that goes. I know TV licensing and rights and all of that. I know why it happens, but I am not in favor of it. Thank you.
I don't just feel like I have a connection to them. I do have a connection to
Gary,
them.
Keith, and Ron are my 3 best friends.
Okay.
Thanks.
You need to get more friends. No, but honestly, it's not just a matter of the fact that it shouldn't be that way. Like, it's just not fair. I feel like it's not fair to them
It's
for the
not.
amount of work that they put in.
I
Like,
want to hear Gary calling Mets playoff baseball games, and I don't get that opportunity. And it sucks. Sometimes Ron's on like the TBS, but Ron, it makes appearances on the national stuff, TBS or whatever. But yeah, it sucks.
well, because you want to know what the national broadcasters won't discuss and won't say. The Nationals demoting star shortstop C.J. Abrams to the minors for being out late, and the national broadcasters wouldn't say that it's really late and I can see 4 a.m. but not 8 a.m. And they wouldn't say spoken like a man with experience, Ron.
I just know that Keith Hernandez was a good time back in his day.
It has been well documented that Keith Hernandez was a good time back in the day.
I
That
bet
whole
he's-
86 team,
Oh,
besides
please,
Carter,
please.
whoo.
I bet he's a good time now, but back in his day, I bet 8 a.m. was the norm, and I bet he would call up the Washington Nationals and tell them to calm down.
I
Not
bet
that we're proponents of that.
Not that we're proponents of that, but it is, I think, interesting just to reflect on how it is a different time.
Yeah.
Like, not only do I think that Keith would call up the Mets, I actually think that the Mets would check to see if he's in the room, and if they weren't, they'd be like, all good.
Keith would be a good guy for the Mets now to do some crisis counseling. Like, do you remember back when, like, Matt Harvey...
Crisis counseling?
Do you remember when, like, Matt Harvey had his...
He's a therapist
Had
now.
his moments back in the Harvey time. He was, like, late to the ballpark a few times. He was always out with the models. Harvey liked the fun life a little bit.
Yep.
Bring Keith Hernandez in the room and give him some... I think he's a really good resource.
Good resource, spoken from experience.
Spoken from experience.
Well, anyway, they're teaching him a lesson. I'm curious what anybody thinks about that. If you have any thoughts, I'm kind of wanting to know. Nationals not playing for anything, but still just
They
just
sent
curious.
him down to the minors, and the minor league
It's to the
season's
minors.
over. They sent him home. They said, "You're done."
Like, damn.
I know.
That's a harsh punishment.
Right.
Okay. Anyway.
Yes. So will the Mets come back to Citi Field this year? I don't know. We certainly hope so. The division winner with the worst record hosts the third wild card, so it will be the Brewers as of right now. And the first wild card hosts the second. So we will get into the playoff bracket if the playoffs started today. They don't start today. They start in a week from now, which is crazy to say that it's in a week. But the Mets will not play games in the wild card series at home.
Right. The other thing, I do think we should just discuss these Atlanta scenarios for a moment, so we sort of see what is coming up. And again, this is where, sorry, we don't know if the Mets are going to win or lose tonight, but we wrote them down for both. If the Mets win and the Braves win today, which the Braves did win, by the way.
Yes.
So if the Mets win, then if the Mets won 2 out of 3 in Atlanta, they could clinch.
Clinching in Atlanta would just be, I mean, like, I'll take
the stuff
clinching,
of dreams.
but just being able to do it on their field would really give me a moment, you know?
If the Mets lose tonight, then 3 out of 3 would clinch. And no offense, but that's not happening. It's just not.
Yeah.
The Mets are going to win 3 out of 3 in Atlanta.
I mean, I would doubt it, but
I
you
hope
never
it's
know.
a reverse jinx. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, you've
but
been good
no,
at that.
No.
You've been good at that. In all likelihood, getting swept by Atlanta is a problem. They cannot lose all 3 in Atlanta. Mathematically, I don't think it would be impossible, but they can't afford to get swept in Atlanta. The Mets' magic number against the Braves right now is 6, but again, that's before tonight's game. Also, the Diamondbacks are very much in play. The Mets a game behind the Diamondbacks going into today, and let's not forget then that puts you in a different spot in that bracket. If you get the second wild card, then all of a sudden you're playing the Padres, which we can go through our opinions on that now because I think it's pertinent.
I agree. One other thing I want to say, which I'm sure many of you know, but the reason also, of course, like the one game winning in Atlanta is important is because if they win that game, then that also means that they have the tiebreaker.
Yes.
So that if their records were the same at the end of the year, the Mets would go. That is crucial. That is relevant, and that is necessary.
The Mets have 86 wins tonight, and they have a week to get 4 more wins to get. If you told me that the Mets are going to win 90 games, I would have called you an insane person.
Can you believe that?
No.
Well, because remember, this is something we didn't bring up, but I remember seeing on Twitter sometime this week when the Mets, I want to say we're probably 0-5 at this point, and the entire stadium is empty.
Rock bottom with Gary Cohen.
And Gary Cohen is like, this feels like rock bottom right now.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Compared to the way it felt on Saturday, that's unbelievable, no matter which way you slice it.
And a guy on Twitter this week, funniest thing ever, said this is going to be a heater of an intro to the World Series documentary. Just to Gary Cohen on Game 6 being like, sure feels like rock bottom. It's going to hit. I'm telling you.
And you could just see it now. It like pops up the exact date on the screen. Anyway, that's just us being broadcasters.
Sorry.
But yeah, honestly, would be curious how you guys feel about this. We printed out the postseason picture if the postseason started today. I'm sure many of you know they have that as a resource on MLB.com. Great resource. And it shows the path where the Mets would be right now. And they would be playing, I gave you one too.
Oh, delightful.
And they would be, Ashley's like looking over at I'm like, get your own diagram. And the Mets would
Look
be,
at this. Wow.
The Mets would be playing the Brewers first. The Brewers would be the 3 seed, Mets as the 6 seed, and then whoever won that series would play the Dodgers. There's also this other, if you look right below it, and I know you guys can't see it, but I'm sure many of you know this already, on that National League side, that's the Padres and the Diamondbacks playing against one another, and the winner of that would play against the Phillies. And we've had a lot of discussions about which of those, since there's still room for that to change, like what path would you prefer? Would you ultimately prefer to play the Dodgers or the Phillies first?
Here's the thing. I have a few notes. I have a few things.
Give
on
it
this.
to me.
If they played the Brewers and then they would advance to the Dodgers, hypothetically. Playing the Brewers is beneficial to you because they played the Brewers in the last series of the season. So now all of a sudden you're playing the Brewers for days and days. Maybe you can be onto something? What?
You don't have to travel.
What do you mean?
That matters too.
Oh,
if they
true.
finish playing the Brewers,
True.
and then they're playing the Brewers again,
True.
I think travel, sometimes people don't realize how much that
True.
accounts for the mental this and the physical that. You can stay.
Yeah.
That's a pro.
Good point. So there's that. Also, the Brewers have announced that for this last series with the Mets, the Brewers ran away with the NL Central. They have not been playing with anything for weeks. They're 9 games up on the Cubs. The Brewers have announced that because of that, in this last regular season series with the Mets, they are limiting their starters to, I believe it is 5 innings. So they are not stretching those guys out. They're saving them. So you get the benefit of being familiar with the Brewers and no travel, but then you have to play the Dodgers, and I don't want to play the Dodgers. If I could avoid the Dodgers for the NLDS, that would be really preferable. So that's why I'm going to tell you all that my opinion is that the Mets, if the Mets could get the second wild card and play the Padres. Now, here's the thing. I feel worse about playing the Padres than I do the Brewers. I'd prefer to play the Brewers, but that means you advance to the NLDS and you get the Phillies. And one thing about that is I know the Phillies have been, I think the Phillies have a better record than the Dodgers. The Phillies have been one of the best teams in baseball all summer. They're like 30 games over 500, but the Mets have figured it out against the Phillies at least this weekend to some extent. They're very familiar with them, a division opponent. I also just think it's really fun. While it would really, really break my heart, this is where I'm going to clip this, and it's going to cut back to me when the Phillies beat the Mets in the NLDS. But regionally, it would just be a good time.
Yeah.
Phillies, Mets, the rivalry. I'd rather play them than the Dodgers. I'm just going to say it.
I understand that. And it's so funny because coming into this episode, I actually felt like I was going to say that that's the path I would want. But now that we've discussed it, I actually think I don't feel that way anymore.
You want to play the Dodgers?
I don't want to.
Nobody wants to play the Dodgers.
Nobody wants to go up against Shohei Ohtani, but let's just think about this. At least for me, it's a few things.
Okay.
Number one, that travel thing. I'm a little stuck on that. I really think that's interesting that you would get to stay in the same spot. The other thing is, the Mets and the Brewers, while it's not a Mets-Phillies, kind of Northeast rivalry, there is heat there based on the things that happened in the beginning of the season with the Rhys Hoskins slide and the Jeff McNeil and the, if you don't think that the players will remember that and bring that into a playoff series, you're crazy.
Yeah.
The only other thing is, when I think about the Dodgers, Ohtani could wreck the whole thing. But I don't feel like the Dodgers normally fare very well in the playoffs.
Correct.
I feel like once they get into a pressure spot is when they tend to collapse.
And the Phillies are the opposite of that, which is true. But the Mets have gotten to the Phillies starting pitching this weekend. And if they, can take that formula into a postseason atmosphere, I don't know. I think I just really want a New York, Philadelphia. I think that'd be fun.
And I think listen, I would love to know from our viewers, like, which pathway would you prefer? Because it's either way, it's a tough road to victory and to success here. But those are the options for right now. We'll see what ends up happening.
And we could be sitting here next week saying that they missed it entirely. And baby, that's just the beauty of playoff baseball. Sorry, I had to say it.
No, you didn't have to say it. She did. All right, one other thing we want to let you guys know, just as far as our quote-unquote Syracuse Mets update.
Yeah.
First of all, let's actually hit Syracuse Mets. It's their last game of the season today.
Season ended today. They won it on a walk-off hit from Luke Ritter. Great season with them, great time. They were not a good team in the second half, as we've been telling you all year long. But yeah, Syracuse Mets season over sucks. It actually feels like summer's ending now that the Syracuse Mets are over.
No, it really is. I feel like this is where it turns into fall.
Right.
Even though it has nothing to do with the calendar year for me. It's just like, boom,
I think the calendar's today too. It might be fall today.
I was gonna say I know it's this week. Anyway, it's fall.
Anyway,
Josh Kozlowski is our meteorologist at our station.
Anyway.
All right. The other thing is Senga is out for the rest of the regular season.
Yeah.
I was reading up on some articles. They ultimately said the reason why is because he had some tricep tightness during his minor league start Saturday for AAA Syracuse. Mendoza did say it would end his regular season. He also said he will continue to throw, maybe a live batting practice. He's not sure. He said, we're not going to put him in a big big league game until he clears all the steps and things like that. But most articles said that it was possible that he could return during the postseason. You think no, but articles were saying that.
I don't think he's coming back. That's just my opinion. I mean, he hasn't been able to get ramped up all summer. He finally did, got hurt again.
I'm just saying it's a possibility.
Yeah. I think, like you mentioned earlier, right? He could provide them some. I still think, even if Kodai Senga comes back, your 3-man playoff rotation has to be Peterson, Severino, Minaya. Also, in the same vein, like you brought up when we were talking earlier, he can provide you some real depth out of the bullpen if you have Kodai Senga as an available option in a playoff game. So there's that. The other injury news of the week is Christian Scott is getting Tommy John. That's unfortunate. Am I shocked? I literally said this last week about somebody else. I forget who in the bullpen. Oh, Nunez. That the minute these guys are dealing with that particular tendon that leads to Tommy John surgery if you need it, I just have no faith. He was shut down for a month or two, and now he needs Tommy John. But it wouldn't have mattered anyway. He would have still missed all of 2025 regardless. Unfortunate. I really want to see that guy grow and develop, and I think he showed us flashes of it this year in New York, so it sucks. It sucks.
It does. And back to the Senga note for a second. End of the day, Senga and Mendoza have both said many a time that they weren't comfortable with the idea of Senga being in unless he felt 100%.
Right.
Ultimately, I think I agree with you. I don't know that it's possible that he's going to feel back up to that 100%, and it's a lot of pressure in a big spot to go in there unless you know in your heart that you're ready.
Yeah.
But the thing about it that does suck was I felt like the place where he could potentially come in clutch was like if there was a starter who was having a bad game.
Yeah.
He could cover a fourth, a fifth, and a sixth inning or potentially a seventh. Like end of the day, he's a starter.
Yeah.
Like he could fill a hole that other people would not be able to fill.
Right. And if your options there are, right, because if Quintana, Tyler McGill fall out of the playoff rotation, all right, then they go to the bullpen. Those are your depth options. I don't like I know they've been
That's her favorite.
My noise. I know they've been pitching better as of late, both of them. Quintana actually really in particular has been great his last few starts, but just both of those guys dropping them into a hypothetical fourth inning, your starter just puts you in a bad spot. I don't like it.
I understand. And also I am curious, it's just my last question, like at this point, based on what you've seen, who would be your top three?
Severino, Minaya, Peterson has to be.
There's a part of me that feels like Quintana over Peterson.
Oh, I don't trust that guy. Nope. I don't agree.
Lately I trust him. I don't know. I know there's a little recency bias because of Peterson and the fact that he flopped a little bit, but I've been liking what I've been seeing from Quintana.
You know why I don't trust Quintana?
Why?
Actually, he pitched the game that I went to at Citi Field this year, and this is a good example for how I feel like a lot of his clunkers went this season. The minute he gets going, it's done. Like the minute Quintana, I feel like, gives up more than 2 runs, 3, 4, it's like he's going to give up 8. Like there's no stopping the train. You know what I mean?
No,
and I don't feel that way about Peterson, Minaya, or Severino.
Well, I can promise you I don't feel that way about Minaya because I people will not believe me when I say this, but I swear I really did. A graphic came up on the TV that said it was like the game had just started. I want to say it's Kyle Schwarber who leads off for the Phillies. Is that? But whoever it was, it said something like they 14 leadoff home runs this year. I literally turned to my brother. I said, Jake, this batter is going over the fence.
That's weird.
Isn't that weird?
That's odd.
It was so odd. Like literally 15 seconds in between, and it was. I do think it was the first pitch. If not, it was the second.
Yeah.
Home run. But I brought that up to say that I saw Minaya. They obviously do a little cutaway.
He
they show his
gathers
face.
himself.
He gathers. He takes a minute. He breathes. And then he really gets back on track. So that's something in a pitcher that I really appreciate. I have to say, like I'd like to watch him go through that emotional train live.
My least favorite characters, as documented on this podcast, are the characters that I feel like are not mentally as pitchers. They have the mental meltdowns. McGill falls in that category. Quintana, I said it about Steven Matz. I don't like mental is a part of the game. Also, I'm gonna check the score. It's 1-0 Phillies in the top of the second.
Well, yeah, your dislike for McGill is well documented.
Well documented. Let's take a beat on Lindor because we just didn't bring him up.
Right.
He is hoping to come back for the Atlanta series. I mean, fingers crossed that he can. I know that was kind of the target the whole time. But Mendoza said he might be available tonight to even pinch hit off the bench. So that tells me that he's feeling better. And I would really, really love if that happened, not to rush him back. But, I mean, last game at Citi Field, maybe give the guy a standing ovation, for one more time in the regular season.
Give him something.
Give
and
him
speaking
something.
of backs, thanks so much to everybody who commented. I was thrilled with all the comments that we got about backs and the ways that they were hurting and how to problem solve on that.
All the
Thank you
doctors.
so much for locking in.
Shout out to the doctors.
Final thoughts, and then we'll wrap it up. Get out of here.
Final thoughts, I almost can't believe it, right? The last week of the regular season, we are hoping to come to you with more episodes as this goes on. A, in the hypothetical playoffs. I'm not going to jinx it. B, even maybe this week as things kind of progress in the Brave series. Here we go. I mean, this is it. 6 more games, and the Mets are either going to be a playoff team or they are not. I'm a little terrified going into Atlanta, but like I said, if you can win tonight, going up 2, that's fantastic. Even going in up 1 is a better spot than I would have hoped for a couple weeks ago.
Playoff baseball is inching closer and closer, baby.
I'm
and
so
we will
excited.
be with you through it all. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us, despite some of the sound effects that we have made tonight. We will
Sorry.
see you back here again next week or sooner.